Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I see that everyone start logging in and saying hello on the chat. So on behalf of World Chef, welcome you to another event with World Chefs and Nestleprofessional. So today we will continue our journey into the exciting world of plant-based beverage. We have the pleasure to welcome three experts from Nestleprofessional, Manuel, Anna, and Crystals, who will walk us through the plant-based beverage world. So without further ado, I would like to invite our speaker to start the session.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Anna. Good morning, Chris. And welcome you all. We've seen some hellos from different parts of the world. So I'm pleased to welcome you to this webinar that we called I Want More. So my name is Manuel Aleman, and I work for Nestle, and I'm responsible for the plant-based beverage business and also the vending ingredients, and we are, all of us, we are currently based in Switzerland. So for me, as I mentioned, it's a pleasure to host this webinar today, together with my two colleagues, Ana Aragon and Christos Sotiros. And just for you to know, Ana, it's our nutritional and sustainability manager. And Christos, who's next to me, is a Master Barista at Nestleprofessional. And just to share with all of you, he recently won the Swiss Barista Championship. We have some mic over there, okay. And Chris won recently the Swiss Barista Championship. We all have been working together in the plant-based beverage category for several years, and we will share with you today during this webinar, which is actually the second part of our plant-based webinar series, some of the information that we prepared to you all. But first, and before we kick off this webinar, we would like you and to celebrate with all of you what happened yesterday, which is the World Vegans Day. So that was a very important event for all of the people that knows and to follow this vegan way of living. So congratulations, and it was very, very, very important for all of us. So considering how more and more consumers are changing their diets, either for ethical, environmental, or some other reasons, I'm sure that many of you have friends, families, or maybe a few of you are also vegan or might be vegan as well. So while the World Vegan Day, it's a time to celebrate veganism, it's also time for people to look at their current situation and raise awareness about many, many issues that we know the world's facing regarding food supply, regarding also ingredients, and also the impact on the environment. Before we quickly go over our agenda, I just want to emphasize that the idea for all of you that are listening to us is to share with you, and we want all you to leave the webinar at the end of this journey to be prepared, to be engaged with all of our plant-based beverage categories. So today, we will start by quickly recapping what we discussed in our previous webinar, and this includes the history and the evolution of the plant-based beverage category, followed by a deep dive of its consumer's profile, and then we will explore the future of this segment. But I will give then after that the stage to my colleagues Anna and to Christos. Anna, she will go over the key sustainability aspects that make the plant-based category unique, and she will also cover the nutritional value of the category and also the ingredients that can be added to make it perfect for a range of applications. And after Anna, our Master Barista Christos, he will explain to you how you can use plant-based beverage categories in a coffee shop, in a cafeteria environment, and he will speak also about how to innovate with it and discuss with all of you, and or I would say all of us, the remarkable experience that it can be created. So without further ado, let's jump into our next slide, which is we want to start our conversation, and I would like to revisit some of the key points we discussed during the previous webinar. And we've started by analyzing the historic context of the plant-based beverage category and how current generations interact with it. From an historical standpoint, it's important to emphasize that the category actually dates back to somewhere between the 1st and the 3rd century. And we can trace the earliest mention of soy milk back to a stone lab found in China. And according to this and other sources, people believe that gently heating soy milk made it easier to digest when compared to cow's milk. Also, if we shift from Asia to medieval Europe, we can see that a few hundred years ago, almond milk was considered a luxury. And almond milk was also used in many recipes for high quality dishes. And in addition to this, it was viewed as desirable for its longer shelf life and also the lower risk of carrying diseases. And as we fast forward to the 20th century, we have to mention then that soy milk boom, which began, I would say, in the 80s. For almost 3 decades, soy was incredibly popular across the US, Europe, and Asia, and also some countries such as Australia. And in the United States, the sales peak reached close to 1.2 billion in 2008. Moving to our next slide, if we look at the evolution of the plant-based alternatives, we can break the growth of the segment down into generations. So you'll see in your slide 1st, 2nd, and 3rd generation. But the 1st generation is defined by the growth of soy milk and almond milk, as I mentioned previously, right? While the 2nd generation is much broader, and we can see here some nuts, fruits, and grain beverages becoming more prominent, including into this the hazelnuts, the cashew, coconut, rice, and also oat, amongst others. But bear with me, the 3rd generation goes even further. And this brings pulses and seeds, as well as other crops like peas and also hemp. But in summary, we now have a high number of plant-based alternatives in the market, and I'm pretty sure you've seen this. And they can be used in many, many, many ways, including for sure as a dairy substitute in an enormous number of recipes. And look at this. One of the drivers that the plant-based market, which we will be covering soon, it's a growing focus on health and wellness among consumers. And some studies indicates that almost 3/4 of global consumers noted this growing focus on health and wellness as a change in their purchasing behaviors. And this happened, I would say, across the last 2 or 2.5 years. And this is as a result of the pandemic. Okay. Moving forward, despite a steady rise throughout the early 21st century, the plant-based category has only experienced this kind of meteoric growth in the past few years. And globally, the market is expected to be valued at $21 billion by the end of 2026. And according to the International Food Information Council, a 2021 research done in the US showed that about 2/3, meaning close to 65% of Americans, they reported they're eating plant-based alternative products in the past year. Meanwhile, Ipsos found that 46% of the Britons aged 16 to 75, are considering reducing their intake of animal products at some point in the future. If we move on the bottom left side of the slide, if we go to the Asia Pacific region, the plant-based market is expected to grow by almost 4 times between 2020 and 2030. And finally, the Smart Protein Project found that the sales of plant-based food and beverage products in Europe grew to 3.6 billion euros in 2020. And that represents a growth of closely 49, I would say closely 49 to 50%. So it's clear from this information that we have and the resources and studies that we have available that the plant-based category, it's growing and it's growing at a fast pace. And having said that, we should look more closely on who consumes these plant-based alternatives, right? And I would say, let me ask you something. Do you know what a flexitarian diet is? And in order to understand more about who consumes plant-based food and beverages, I would say we need first to understand the concept of a flexitarian diet. And I remember, and hopefully a few of you that are online, we discussed this in our previous webinar, and we deep dive a little bit on the flexitarians. But the flexitarian diet, it's essentially a flexible alternative to being vegetarian or vegan. And the term flex in the word flexitarian means that the diet allows for some flexibility. And this is, why many people choose to be flexitarian or to limit their consumption of animal products rather than eradicating it altogether. But ultimately, it's grounded in wanting to get more plant-based ingredients in their diets without ruling it out entirely, right? So for a clear definition, a flexitarian person is a person who primarily eats, but bear with me, it's not limited to a non-animal based diet. And that includes vegetable, fruits, grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, instead of dairy, meat, or even fish, okay? But moreover, it's important to emphasize that this is not necessarily a meatless diet. And believe it or not, flexitarianism is much more common than you think. And think about your consumption habits. Do you sometimes cut meat or fish during the week? And this is a question to we all. So we may be a kind of flexitarian, but probably we're not aware of it. And a recently study has shown that 1 out of 2 people are flexitarian at some extent. And believe me, and part of this, I'm very proud to be flexitarian. I take care of what I eat, of what I do, and it's part of my daily routines. But moreover, this there are 2 groups, right, that are impacting and that are driving the trends, globally. And these 2 groups have their own characteristics, and there are the Gen Zs and millennials that are from 60 to 44 years old. And these are the largest demographics. And these groups of people and 2 groups are the most important for the plant-based category as a result. I would say both Gen Zs and millennials are motivated by meaningful decisions. They're prioritizing experiences over possessions and aiming to reduce the environment and social footprint, among other factors. And that includes the car you drive, the food you eat, the beverage you drink, and many, many other things. So with this in mind, it's not a surprise that most plant-based products are targeted at these 2 groups, okay? Moving to the next slide, if we really want to understand the plant-based phenomenon, we need to zoom out the category and ask ourselves about the mega trends and challenge. Believe me, there are plenty of. We can identify 3 key mega trends to focus on. The first one is a growing focus on health and wellness that modern consumers have. Health and wellness have become a priority for many worldwide, and consumers today are more proactive than ever about supporting their bodies and mind through a balanced diet and lifestyle. Secondly, we also need to consider the increasing consumer focus on the environment and sustainable causes. It's not a secret that climate change is affecting our daily routines, and plant-based is widely perceived by consumers as a category that has a much lower carbon footprint. And finally, bottom left on the slide, flavor and taste consumers are demanding higher quality and better tasting products all the time. And plant-based beverages and plant-based beverage products are not an exception to this rule. So, however, what we've discussed on the mega trends and the extraordinary growth on the plant-based beverage sectors, there's some challenges, and we've been also living these challenges. And while taste and flavor together make up an important mega trend to consider, taste, variety of application and performance are also challenges, right? So there's a space to improve here. And with more than 34% of European consumers saying that the sensory attributes of a plant-based alternatives are the #1 area that requires improvement, we've seen many improvements. And preparing a plant-based beverage alternative is also a challenge. It's known that certain products might not mix well, and Chris will show a little bit of this during his presentations. And that mix, it's not, it's according for the acidic and the quality of some other ingredients. And this impacts on performance. Sometimes it breaks the foam and impacts the overall customer and consumer experience. So moving to the next slide, I would like just to show you a little bit about the future of the category. So it's clear that the ongoing change in consumers' habits aligns quite well with the potential of the plant-based. And ultimately, more and more brands are offering nutritional, lactose-free, and sustainable products. But generally speaking, global market reports suggest that plant-based beverages sales have continued to grow year on year for a while now, and there are no signs that this growth will slow down at any time soon. There's also space for continued innovation in this segment, and exemplified by the shift from a few options to a wide range of plant-based dairy alternatives currently on the market, including rice, soy, coconut, hemp, and peas. If we move to the next slide, if we stop actually for a moment and we analyze where most plant-based food and beverages are consumed, we can see that clearly the out-of-home business are the most significant. And for businesses in this space, having plant-based offering is now a must-have, meaning a clear opportunity for the beverage alternative to have a professional barista-specific solutions. And these solutions don't just focus only on texture or of the microfoam for latte art and versatility in application, but also taste and flavor. And it's important to ensure that the plant-based alternative is neutral and the plant proteins don't overpower or leave any off flavors. So it's a coffee shop environment where professionals, baristas are offering much wider variety of plant-based options. And also in coffee shops, they start to look for inspiration and new ways to premiumize their beverage menus. And in order to differentiate, they also match with consumer consumption habits. And most important, to increase consumers' loyalty, right? But ultimately, it will be the beverage quality, overall perception and presentation, and good ingredients that will set brands apart, establish the new trends, and keep customers coming back. So having said this, I would like to have our first poll time. So Lynn, if you help us with the poll, I will read it and then we will hand over to the participants just to respond. So the first poll, I would like to ask, where did you have your first plant-based beverage alternatives? So time is running. Okay, so thank you, Lynn. So the most voted, we have two winners here. So people have tried this first at home with 42% of people responding at home. And also, consistent with what I mentioned, coffee shop with close to other 40%. So having said that, I will hand over, if you close the polling. Let me see here. Okay, I'm back here. So I'll hand over to my dear colleague and friend, Ana Aragon, that will guide us through the second part of the webinar. So Ana, welcome.
Thank you very much, Manuel, and thank you to everyone joining today in the webinar. As Manuel stated before, we are looking at a category that is seeing a boom around the world, and as we know, the changes in consumer behavior are shifting the way that we eat and also the way that we drink. And in line with this, the plant-based alternatives are becoming a very attractive choice for many consumers globally. So as part of today's webinar, we will look at why more consumers are shifting to plant-based alternatives, understand more about the nutrition facts behind, and explore a bit the key sustainability factors for the category. So if we move, there are several reasons that consumers choose plant-based beverages, but in a nutshell, some of them that have been mentioned by Manuel already. The main reasons include health, animal welfare, sustainability, and taste. As you see in the graph, a recent survey shows us the key drivers behind the category, and one of the biggest reasons is this health and well-being. If you look at the chart, you can see that 53% of the respondents mentioned this as a driver. Health and nutrition are both important in the category, and the rates of plant-based beverages offer several benefits in this regard, as we will see later on. Alongside this, plant-based food and beverages can also add variety to people's diet, and this is becoming more and more important. Variety was the second most prominent factor highlighted in the survey, with 35% of those surveyed noting it as a factor. The third most prominent was sustainability and environmental impact, with 32%. And finally, after this, 19% of consumers poll indicated that they go to plant-based because it tastes better. So it's a good opportunity for those that you didn't taste before to start now. So when choosing a plant-based product, nutrition is a factor that must be taken into consideration. However, picking the right one for any application involves weighing how it performs in terms of several factors, including, of course, sustainability, flavor, but very important in out-of-home functionality, and allergens, among others. The following nutritional facts are based on available databases and do not represent all the products that you can find in the market, but they are very good average. So levels of protein, fat, or calories can be different if you look into specific product levels. If we focus on the protein content, as you can see, the whole cow's milk has 3.3 grams of protein per 100 milliliters of milk. As you see here in the following examples, the plant-based drinks that have usually the most similar nutritional profile and amount of protein to cow's milk are the pea milk and the soy milk. Pea with 3.3 as well of protein and an excellent foaming properties, whilst soy milk has 2.6 of protein and foams similarly. We also have oat and coconut milks, which still have around 1.3 gram of protein. And furthermore, almond milk has a lower amount of protein, but has a very distinctive taste that Manuel mentioned before, that some consumers might prefer, depending, of course, on the application. Be always very careful about application. Similarly, rice milk has the lowest level of protein, but a very neutral taste. Therefore, what is the final choice? This will come down to finding the right balance between all these different factors. If we go to the next slide, they don't apply to everyone. Remember that the food allergies and intolerance are an important consideration that shouldn't be ignored. 68% of the global population struggles to digest lactose. Lactose intolerance is caused by problems digesting this lactose, that is the natural sugar in milk. In contrast, the milk allergies are caused by the immune system response to one or more proteins in milk and milk products. Cow's milk is one of the most common allergens for infants and your children. For that reason, when you offer plant-based options in your coffee shops, in your restaurant, you can reach wider audiences who can suffer from those. And this is very important because you become more inclusive. In the next one, We have covered the nutritional facts about plant-based. We are going to explore what else we can find on the ingredient list. When plants are the key ingredient, they may need a little bit of help to perform according to the standards that you need, but doesn't mean that all the products need to have all these ingredients. We just need to know that to help these products perform like the traditional dairy ones, in terms of consistency, flavor, or mouthfeel, some extra ingredients may be added. This can make plant-based products perfect for your application. Let's take a closer look. In the first one, we'll start with protein. Protein is a very important nutrient, of course, that is found naturally in some plants, but extra protein may be added on top to help, for example, help the yogurt or the cheese, or to create specific tastes and textures. Products formulated for baristas usually include this extra protein level. Why? Because we want to improve the functionality and the performance of the product and be up to the coffee house standards, as Manuel already mentioned. If we go to the next one, fat is as well an essential component of dairy. And fats and oils help deliver this creamy appearance, the texture, and the mouthfeel, but it's lacking in some plants. That's why to deliver and recreate the experience that people expect, extra fats may be added from sources like seeds or olives or coconut, for example. In the next one, the presence or absence of sugar is as well very important. Sugars may be added to increase the sweetness that may be lacking in some of the plants, but it's not absolutely mandatory ingredients. It's depending on the product. And remember that the lactose is this naturally sugar found in milk. So in plants, we need sometimes to recreate the sweetness through different sugar components. If we go to the next one, in terms of foaming for you, for baristas, and this will come with Christos later, is extremely important. The pea and oat-based beverages foam easily when subjected to steam or frothing, and others may need extra ingredients to achieve this foaming and to create the stability and the high quality foam. And the other ingredients that we can find in plant-based products is the stabilizers and emulsifiers. Stabilizers from plant-based products like the xanthan gum, the guar gum, the carrageenan may be added to stabilize and thicken the products, creating a creamy texture. Soy lecithin, for example, can be added to stabilize and thicken them. And last but not least, the presence of or absence of strong flavors can both work in a product's favor. Products can range from neutral flavors, like those made from rice, for example, to strong ones, like those made for coconut. So varies very much depending on the final application that you need. Some products may also contain vanilla, chocolate, or other flavorings to enhance their taste. And the last one, extra nutrients may be as well a relevant consideration, especially for those who follow a strict vegan, as mentioned before by Manuel, or vegetarian diets. Why? Because some plant-based alternatives may lack some of these nutrients that are important for the human health, which include, for example, the vitamin B12, the iron, the calcium, or the vitamin D. For that reasons, those can be ingredients that can be fortified in the products with those nutrients. It's important for you to know this. And now that we cover the nutrition facts of these plant-based beverages and some information about ingredients, we are going to cover now the sustainability factors that make plant-based unique to other alternatives. A strong motivation for many people who drink plant-based milks instead of dairy milk is the potential benefits for the environment. However, even 100% plant-based products vary in sustainability impacts. It's important for you to have this consideration. The farming practices of the different crops takes varying amounts of water and land and releases a range of greenhouse gas emissions. Overall, important to notice that peas and soy score very positively in sustainability and have a very well-established pipeline. to the market. And other legumes like the chickpeas and the fava look favorable for the future. This kind of crops have a very good particularity, the advantage of adding nitrogen back to the soil. So in this case, they limit the need of chemical fertilizers, helping to contribute to a more stable climate. On the other hand, the ingredients that we choose are an important part of the overall ecosystem and the overall impact. Our choices here have a very, very important impact, and opting for more plant-based proteins or crops grown with regenerative agriculture practices are two effective ways to reduce greenhouse gas emission. For example, pulses require about 20 times less land and generate 20 times less greenhouse emission than beef per gram of protein consumed. And this is really, really a huge difference. In summary, a plant-based diet represents a major opportunity to reduce greenhouse gas emission. And consumers have noticed that too. A recent study finding that 88% of consumers prefer brands with a positive environmental footprint. Last but not least, if you take a look at the graph on the right, you can see that there is a vast difference in the greenhouse emissions that are produced across various food types. For example, 1 kilo of beef results in 60 kilograms of CO2 equivalents. Now, if we go to the bottom part, to the peas, the emissions are 0.9 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. So again, a huge difference between them. Usually, the CO2 emissions from most plant-based products are lower than the ones that come from the animal-based product. That doesn't necessarily mean that we need to exclude meat or animal byproducts from our diets, but we need to consider and be aware and be conscious of the impact of our choices and our decisions may have on the planet. So with this, we go to the second poll, and let's see. For this one, we want to hear from you about why you choose plant-based. So the question, I think, is already in the chat box. Thank you very much. So now closing the poll, we see that it's quite consistent with the survey that we just mentioned. And most of you will choose because it's healthier and as well because it's sustainable. So really great. As well, you are conscious that it's adding variety to your diet, and this is important for nutrition and sustainability. And tastes better, a little bit lower the score, but yes, keep trying, because this is, we really, really are believer on this category. So thank you very much, and I'm going to hand over now to Christos for the third part of the webinar today.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and share our learnings with all of you today. My name is Christos Sotiros, and I'm the Master Barista at Nestleprofessional. In the previous segments, we have learned how the plant-based category is rapidly expanding and its importance in terms of nutrition, sustainability, and flavor. In this section, I would like to further explore the opportunity that exists for coffee shops. In a nutshell, I want to describe the route to the market that coffee shops must follow to successfully add plant-based to their menu and how to innovate. So far, we've seen several reasons for coffee shops to add plant-based to their menus. Considering how consumer consumption habits are rapidly changing towards plant-based alternatives, there is a strong opportunity for food service operators to increase what they're offering. Adding a plant-based product to your menu ensures that your business is inclusive for all dietary requirements, which opens up the space for a much wider range of customers. And last but not least, it can give you a competitive advantage versus coffee shops in some markets that they still don't offer a plant-based alternative. Assuming you have made the decision to add a plant-based beverage, what are the next steps and what are the key challenges involved? So let's take a look at the most frequent challenges. First one could be the texture and the microfoam. There are many plant-based alternatives available that might not perform for your beverage. The reason behind this is quite simple. It just might not be designed for coffee preparation. Not all plant-based products form well enough to create a stable microfoam for a cappuccino, for example. The second is deciding which plant-based alternative matches your needs. While some plant-based ingredients can be more neutral in flavor, others can have a strong one. So don't be afraid, go on and try a range of different plant-based alternatives and see which performs best in your menu, offering, and recipes. Next one is versatility. You might see that one variant or product does not meet all your recipe demands, so don't be afraid being creative and think outside of the box. And the last one, but very important, is if you don't have a well-prepared and trained staff to brew, steam, serve, and mostly communicate your new offerings, all the resources and the time invested will have no value at all. We will share some more tips on how to overcome these challenges now in the next slides. So let's start with one of the most frequent challenges in barista world when they start working with plant-based, and it is the texture and the microfoam. To start with, it is important that baristas use plant-based beverages that are designed specifically for barista use. As my colleague Anna already mentioned, barista edition alternatives often contain stabilizers to avoid separation and create a creamy texture for the beverage. Maximize not only the flavor but also performance. Seal your plant-based beverage of choice before using it. When steaming plant-based alternatives, you should start with a lower air volume in the beginning and gradually adding more air towards the end of the steaming process. Usually, plant-based drinks need to be steamed for a longer time to create a stable microform. And always before serving or pouring, swirl to keep the texture elasticity in place. When it comes to pairing flavors, there are a few tips as well that I would like to share. So first one, avoid choosing plant-based beverages that are not naturally sweet. Sometimes companies don't add enough sugar to compensate because cow's milk is naturally sweet. However, too much sugar can impact the flavor experience overall and affect your beverages. When developing a plant-based recipe, it is crucial that you pair the right coffee with the right milk. Some plant-based alternatives won't work well with more acidic coffees, for example, as this can cause the microfoam to split and separate, and it won't look nice. I know it might sound too obvious, but taste the final beverage before adding it to the menu. Make sure customers like it too. If the taste profile is quite off from what your normal consumers like, it might not be as successful. In regards to versatility and variety of application, there are a few tips that are definitely worth sharing. Always work closely with your baristas. At the end of the day, they are the ones in direct contact with your customers, and they will be preparing the recipe, but also communicate to sell it. Make them part of the decision-making process. Second, while there are a bunch of plant-based coffee beverages, remember that you can expand your vision to go beyond coffee. What about a matcha plant-based latte, or a dessert, or a pumpkin plant-based latte? Think outside of the box and be creative. As I mentioned before, there are plenty of plant-based alternatives, and each of them has a unique flavor profile. So don't limit yourself to only one plant-based source. Consider adding a number of different ones and make sure you diversify. This will also help you to develop new recipes and existing flavor profiles. Be creative with both the recipe for the drink and how you present it. Develop a brainstorming process with your team so you can come up with unique recipes. Make it fun and enjoyable so that creativity will naturally follow. The last topic here, and one of the most important, is training and education. This is critical. Always train your staff staff for recipe consistency. It is important to ensure your team is able to replicate the same recipe over and over again on a very consistent way. This shows your clientele a high level of professionalism and commitment to service. When you start offering plant-based beverages, take a customer-centric approach. Remember, your staff should be trained to slowly and carefully introduce plant-based to those who are just getting started. With the rise of the third wave specialty coffee movement, one of the key jobs for coffee shops is providing consumers with a positive customer experience. Be gentle, aim for service excellence, understand your customers' natural preferences, and make sure you provide a positive customer experience. Education and communication are key for a successful operation. Ensure that there is a streamlined communication channel between managers and service staff to avoid miscommunication issues. Make sure you know who is serving aids every day and ensure they're properly educated about any new plant-based additions to the menu. Innovation can have a quite broad meaning, and most of the time it is not easy to be innovative. However, we would like to help guide you with a few ideas to innovate with plant-based alternatives. Innovation in plant-based is related to its different application, thinking out of the box, and getting most of the plant-based opportunity. A good example is to develop signature drinks, and innovation can also be going beyond coffee recipes. Think of tea, sparkling beverages, cold drinks, chai, smoothies, and so on. Finally, remember that innovation is not always rely on flavor, but it's strongly connected to the presentation. And since we are talking so much about recipe innovation, why not share some examples? As you have seen, there is a bunch of reasons to upgrade your coffee menu to include plant-based alternatives. However, the most important factor to consider is that it is a consumer-driven trend. So know your audience profile, conduct a research about which plant-based alternative you should offer. Is your audience ready for a full plant-based transition? Slowly but effectively introduce it to your audience. And finally, one of the greatest ways to attract more clients is to innovate. So based on what we have seen so far, we would like at this point to share a recipe video with you for your inspiration. Please enjoy the video and we will come back with you shortly.
So, bar, well, we will share with you some of the recipes that Chris will prepare. But also, we will share with you some tips and techniques that you can use in your cafeterias to innovate and prepare your plant-based.
Hello everyone, this is Christos Sotiros. Today we will go together through a series of different coffee recipes by using plant-based alternatives. The key objective of these recipes is to inspire you and share with you some tips on how to use these products for a better end cap result. So for you to adapt new recipes for your menus, either permanently or for a seasonal activation during holidays, etc. So let's start with the basics first and go to prepare a plant-based cappuccino by using the alternative of pea. First thing we have to do is to extract our espresso. Typically for a cappuccino we're using a single espresso in a cup of 150-170 ml, and the espresso should be around 25 to 30 ml. Before start steaming our plant-based, I would like to give you a couple of tips how you can better reach the optimum result. It's very important that we start with a cold base directly from the fridge, ideally at 4 or 5 degrees, because this will give you more time to work on the product to reach the optimum texture, creating the microfoam, the elasticity you need to perform latte art, also to produce the optimum thickness of the crema. Another tip is to shake well before using the product. You really need to homogenize the product for the better result. So the ideal temperature should be around 65 and 70 degrees. By reaching this temperature will give you the optimum flavor in terms of sweetness, but also texture. On latte art is the same principles for any other product performing latte art. What I like a lot with this product, based on the P, is that it's really not overpowering the coffee. Rather, that highlights the flavors of the coffee. And in terms of texture and appearance, it has a great result on latte art as well. Enjoy. We will do an iconic fall recipe, which we all know. It's a pumpkin spice latte, but we will make the vegan version of it. I'm going to be using a dark roasted coffee to create a nice synergy and harmonious balance with the pea plant-based alternative, which is naturally sweet. Those two are also mixing and combined perfectly with the different spices we're going to be using in the recipe. So they create a nice synergy and the perfect end result. So to start with, we're going to extract a double shot espresso, and we will put it directly to the milk pitcher, where we will add all the rest of the ingredients and we'll mix everything together. So let me start with the espresso. For a double shot espresso, we usually want to use around 18 to 19 grams of coffee to take out 45 to 50 grams of liquid. So now that the coffee is ready, we will add it to the milk jug. Adding our next ingredient, which is the pea alternative. We want to use approximately 30 ml of pumpkin spice syrup. And then on top of that, season it with a pinch of cinnamon and a pinch of nutmeg. Of course, you can use any spices to your preference. Just make sure you don't put too much, because it will overpower the beverage. And now we will use the steam wand of the espresso machine to homogenize and create a nice texture. In this case, we don't want to add volume to the liquid and to the beverage. We just need to swirl it very well to homogenize and bring it to an optimum temperature of 60-65 degrees. Then put it directly to the glass, and I will top it up with some vegan whipped cream. And some more cinnamon and nutmeg seasoning. And enjoying your vegan pumpkin spice latte. So next recipe, agave oat latte, plant-based. We've got our inspiration starting from the syrup this time, which is quite a unique ingredient. It's natural, sweet, and different. It has some more winey notes and a little bit of a unique finish, and it matches very, very well with the oat alternative. So let's start by making our coffee base. We will use soluble coffee. I'm putting a spoon, around 3 grams of coffee, in a small container, a pitcher. You can use anything you have available, and then you add 50 ml of hot water. Then by using a small spoon or a stirrer, you try to dilute the coffee with the hot water, and then you set it on the side. Next step is to steam and heat our oat alternative. So similar to any steaming we do to prepare a hot beverage. Again, in this case, we don't want to create a thick layer of foam, so don't increase the volume too much in the beginning. Just try to increase the temperature up to 60-65 degrees and create a nice swirling, so you make this creamy texture for the beverage. We will start by putting the agave syrup into the glass. I recommend you use something between 20 and 30 ml, depending on how sweet you would like your latte. Then the next layer that goes into the glass is the oat. And then you need to leave some space for the coffee on the top, and trying to put it slowly and create a straight line on the surface of the beverage. Use the remaining crema and try to touch the surface of the beverage to really create a straight line on top. So we can then create a nice pattern and enjoy the agave oat latte. So let's do now a cold recipe. A very indulging beverage. We will use oat alternative and different ingredients to mix all together by using a mixer. You can use a hand mixer, you can use an other frother, anything that can homogenize the ingredients together and give a nice texture. Coffee for this recipe will be a double shot espresso. For the espresso and the coffee for this recipe, you can use a lighter roast that will mix better with the ingredients and will give a little bit more complexity to the beverage. I'm using 19 grams and extracting around 50 grams out. So working with different ingredients that they might have completely opposite texture is very important, the order that you add them on the shaker or on the recipe, so they can mix well and dilute correctly. So in this case, our first ingredient will be peanut butter, and I'm using 1 teaspoon directly into the shaker. And then I'm using the hot double shot espresso to stir and dilute the peanut butter. Like this, we're bringing the two different textures together so they can then homogenize easier with our next ingredients. Now that the peanut butter is almost diluted, I'm adding maple syrup. Again, 20 to 25 ml, depending on how sweet you like your beverage. And then the oat alternative. I'm gonna also add 1 ice cube to the same shaker. So this will help all the ingredients to cool down and create an even better texture. And then preparing my glass first by adding ice cubes. And then using the mixer for 10 to 12 seconds until all the ingredients are homogenized. This type of mixers are also adding air to the beverage, so they're creating a bit of a thick, creamy texture. And so you can have this nice foam on the top, where this will be the base to garnish our beverage with some crushed peanuts on top and a nice piece of chocolate. And enjoy. So this recipe is called Karak Chai Latte. But we're making the cold version by also using oat alternative. For this recipe, we need to start and prepare a very intense and concentrated tea. So I'm using black tea today, and I will use 2 pods to make it stronger. Then I'm adding 100 to 150 ml of water. And then I'm going to add some spices, breaking a cinnamon stick, a few cardamom seeds, and again, these also try to squeeze them and break them so they can release all of the aromas. You can also use some grounded clove. Then you let the tea to extract on the side, and it also cools down. Our next step is to prepare our glass by adding some ice. And the oat. Fill out the glass up to 2/3 approximately. Now that the tea is ready, we simply pour over the oat and the ice. And you can garnish with some more
grounded clove, or give more additional flavor by adding a whole cinnamon stick into the glass. And enjoy.
So welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed the recipe video and that you already start thinking of your own unique plant-based recipes to renew your menus. And we would also like at this point to hear from you which plant-based is mostly preferred in your businesses. And so I invite you to participate in our next and last poll for the day. So
Okay, so thank you, Chris, for launching this poll, and Lynn. So let's see the results. We have almond, soy, also pea. Well, pretty well balanced answers from you also. Thanks, Chris, for such an amazing videos. Before moving and before opening to Q&As, we have answered few through the chat box, but I would like to just to take 1 minute to provide you with some key takeaways. So as we mentioned, the plant-based category, it's gaining momentum and there's no signs of slowing down. And this is an opportunity for we all, and as well, the category, it's aligned with what consumers are expecting, and also the new consumption and lifestyle habits. We've discussed this during the first part of the webinar. Also, plant-based beverage alternatives are formulated to meet customers' nutritional health and operators' need, and this Anna covered during the second part of the webinar. And also a few points that Chris covered, which is coffee destinations are leading plant-based, specifically in the out-of-home. And also, last but not least, we also suggest to seek for innovation when developing plant-based recipes, as Chris did, and you saw a few of the recipes that we showed. And important to think outside the box and innovate, and train and communicate to your consumers. So with this, we are reaching the end of our webinar. So on behalf of Anna and also on behalf of Chris and we all from Nestle and myself, we would like to thank you for being with us. And there's also a special mention to Lynn and the World Association of Chef Societies that's enabling and supporting all of these webinars. So thank you for having this and for hosting as well with us this webinar. So thank you all. We know there's one question. It was already answered. Okay. So thank you all for joining, and stay tuned for next webinars that might come in 2023. So thank you. Have a great and lovely day.